you said you were in boarding school since you were 5 years old.
Yes.
Is it like the indigenous people here? What kind of a school? Like, was it that kind of a boarding school?
The setting is like this. When the British system came to Uganda, it was, the colonization period. The whole period was called the scramble for Africa. All the Europeans, the Germans, the Dutch, the what, poured into Africa because it was called the Dark Continent. So there was excitement to get to know what it looks like. So the British and the Russian and the French competed. And of course, there were the Germans.
And the Spanish too.
And the Spanish too. But the ones that became conquerors were the British. So the western part of Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, blah, 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 those countries were taken by the British. And wherever they landed, they planted their flag there. So there was a scramble in the western part and the eastern part and down. But the Dutch had gone to the very south before. So they were kind of blocking that part. But the British took Uganda. They identified Uganda with their own political system of kingship because there were kings in Uganda. And there were kings in Nigeria, and there were kings in Ghana. Any place they went, they took the ones they identified with. The countries which had kingships.
I see.
And Uganda was one of them. So once they planted their flag there, they came with their missionaries. And the island was ripe for evangelization. So a woman by the name of Kevin came at the age of 23. Kevin was her name.
Oh, that sounds like the name of a boy, but she was Kevin.
Kevin. And so there she came with her youngster, the young crop of Ireland arrived there, and they started schools and hospitals, and therefore education came. So when they started the elementary schools, they also started high schools. But one particular school stood out, Mount St. Mary's in Amagunga. They call it Mount St. Mary's. And so they also opened education for women, young women. They taught them how to sew. They taught them how to take care of babies. So hospitals sprang up. So there were boarding schools for girls and boarding schools for boys because they came with the Mill Hill Father priests. One group of priests.
The Mill Hill?
The British also had missionaries, and some of them were men who were priests. They were priests, and they were in organizations for assembling men to become their own persons. Some of them so when they arrived, schools for boys, schools for girls, and that's what Mother Kevin wanted, to make sure women were also educated.
That's when you went to the
So they also, Mother Kevin also started an organization for black Ugandan nuns to run side by side with the European nuns.
So they sound like they were better than the Irish people were better than the English people. Is that
well,
it?
you know what? You cannot say better.
But you didn't have any negative experience?
No.
Like how the indigenous people here are talking?
No, never.
You didn't
never.
have that.
Oh,
so that's good, yeah.
And wherever they put a convent, a mission, there was a house. First, there was a church. This is the missionary bodies that arrived. The church was the center. And then there was a father's house, the priest's house. And then there was the European nuns' house. And when Mother Kevin started African, Ugandan women's as nuns, they also had a house. So there were 3 institutions core: the church, the parish where the priests lived, and the convent where the nuns lived. Around that,
and the boarding houses and boarding schools.
Around those that group of 3, they surrounded that with schools and hospitals, clinics.
So that sounds like it was a good thing.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Because you didn't have that before in Uganda. No hospital, no proper school.
It was a wild jungle. So
tell me about your school experience.
My
there.
school experience, therefore.
From age 5, that's pretty young.
Well, this big conference with some of my uncles, because the church came, the Anglicans and the Roman Catholics arrived at the same time. So some of the parishes were Anglican, some of the parishes were Roman Catholic. The Roman Catholics had nuns. The Anglican missionaries didn't have women. Theirs were men. So that combination created the convents for nuns. And then they also, Mother Kevin created a group of nuns. Instead of just taking the children and putting them there, they made sure they had educated nuns to run those schools. So this particular school where I went was a huge establishment, a big church, a big house for the priests, European priests. There were no African priests yet, but later on they came.
Your teachers were black people then, black nuns?
No, they were Europeans.
They didn't train them yet. Okay.
They hadn't. This was a beginning.
Okay.
So later on, the boarding schools that were created also had African nuns.
That's where you taught when you finished your school.
That's where I went when I was a little girl.
And then you grew up and you became a teacher in that same school system.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is, when I was in a boarding school as a 5-year-old, my ancestral home had my uncle. Some of my uncles were Anglican, some of them were. So my uncles who were Roman Catholic. Don't forget the Anglican Church didn't have nuns. So all our girls who were in this circumference, those who were Roman Catholics, my uncles decided these girls had to go to school. But then my parents had baptized me. We were all baptized as Anglicans. My father was Anglican, but his brothers, some of them were Roman Catholic. And those who were Roman Catholics said, we have to take all the girls. Nobody is going to be left behind. So we were called sisters, all of us.
All of you went to the school together.
Yes, because the Anglican Church. The good thing is we knew how to read the Bible. We, the group that were from this unit, but the others who were Roman Catholics, the church had said that people cannot read the Bible because they don't understand it. So the Roman Catholics didn't know how to read children, but we did. So when I went with my sisters who were Roman Catholics to the school, I already knew how to read at the age of 3 because my father taught us how to read the Bible.
So when you went to the school at 5. Did you come home for holidays, or did you stay there all the time?
3 times a year.
You came home.
We went home, yeah, and we walked because there were no transportation.
Oh, is not that far from your home?
There were 12 miles from.
So you walked from
the
school.
We all walked.
You guys are strong. in the bushes.
We walked to go back home. We walked to go to school when the time came.
Yeah, no wonder they had to live in at the school, because you can't walk all that every single day. That would have been
But
too
you
bad.
know something? On Fridays, I used to collect all my little buddies and we walked home on Friday. And then on Sunday we walked back, and the nuns would be waiting for us because they knew I had taken them home.
It sounded like you were a responsible young person that they could trust.
I was supposed to be a leader.
Leader, okay.
So anyway,
so you were a leader from since you were little.
And then, because we went to grade 1, 2, 3, 4, I knew how to read, so they put me in grade 4. And so I spent grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. And then one of the African nuns, because now we have Ugandan nuns, they were so protective of us. And they said, now we are going to make sure that we get some nuns out of these children. So one nun, I remember her name so well, Sister Anthony. When I finished grade 6, I passed. She said, you are going to become a nun.
And what order would that be? What order of nun? The Benedictine?
Oh, no, they were little sisters of St. Francis. Because Mother Kevin was
That's St. Francis of Assisi?
Francis of Assisi. So they wanted me to become one of them.
And so what is the purpose of that kind of a nun? What is the main thing that nuns of that order is expected to do?
A nun means A, you are not going to get married ever. B, so the vows are chastity, poverty, and obedience. Those are the 3 core. So that means you renounce your family. You do not consider you have a family out there. You have a family here now. That was the.
But some of these orders, I know they have some are in education, some are in service of different kinds, social work service. So what was this one? Is this
education?
About education?
Education in 2 areas. One, what was core then was education in nursing and teaching. Those were the 2 core.
And so, did you have a choice then to say, I want to be a nun?
No, you were just appointed.
You were just appointed, and you never regretted being a nun?
No, because I didn't even understand what was going on.
Because you did end up getting married afterwards.
Well, the thing though is, I had to, that is another chapter in my life. But I was a nun. I was made a nun.
For many years.
For many years.
For about 10 years.
About 10 years.
But I mean, it's a good thing. It kept you safe.
It is wonderful.
You're not running around with boyfriends all over the place.
I never regret my life.
That's it. It was a good thing, I think.
I
wish a lot of these young people would be nuns today. And then become.
I don't regret my life. I see it as a blessing.
It is. And that would be the next chapter, Rose, because you have done some great things, and I'd like to talk to you again about some of the things that you have done and that I know you have done. You are a giant in your own right.
Thank you. And I know if I had stayed in the convent, I wouldn't have done what I have done.
No.
And one of the things that
God has purposed your life.
That was going on in my mind, because they said you completely renounce your family. That bothered me. That bothered me.
Oh, that's one of the vows you have to take?
Yes, you
Yeah.
have to renounce everything.
Wow, yeah,
your
that's
family, and so when I was there, at that time, I didn't. I longed to see my father, my mother, my siblings, but I had no choice, because once you are there, you are there, and if you decide to leave, you are taken and put in the village where you came from, and that's the end of the story.
And that's the end, like your life stopped there.
Your life is ended.
Well, let's stop there for now for this tape. So thanks, Rose. Rose have told me a little piece of her life, but I've known Rose for many years, 30 years, and I know her life, and once you get to know her, you would see what a wonderful, great person she is. Thanks again.